One flash of a mirror, and everything changed. Graham Whitfield had built hospitals on 3 continents, but tonight, his sharpest investment was instinct. In the motel lobby, a glimmer sliced across his vision. Not random light, deliberate, measured. The beam came from a pocket mirror. The mirror tilted just once in the hand of a girl no older than 12. She sat stiff beside a man who gripped their key tag like a trophy. Graham's pulse surged, not with surprise, but with recognition. The girl's eyes darted to him, then down. Not a child's whim, a coded plea. And then, the second offense. The man's smile. Too broad, too practiced. "My daughter," he announced to the clerk, yet his hand never left her shoulder. That was all Graham needed. One mirror flash, one poisoned word. He'd seen scams. He'd seen greed. But this was different. This was a child signaling danger. And the worst part? Legally, Graham had no grounds, no warrant, no cause beyond instinct and a glint of glass. Inside his chest, fury pressed against bone, but he swallowed it down, steadying his voice, his eyes, his posture. He would not storm. He would not accuse. He would note. He would build a chain of proof so strong no one could tear it apart. The mirror's message was simple. Notice me. And Graham would notice. More than that, he would turn one flash into a system. The man signed the ledger, slid cash across the counter, and tugged the girl toward the hallway. Graham leaned close to the clerk, lowering his voice. "Do me a favor," he said. "Print me the last week's charges for room 214. The clerk blinked, hesitated, then whispered, "Funny thing, he always comes in late, talks like he's reading lines off a page." The words hit Graham harder than the mirror flash. Scripted, manufactured speech. Another tell. He slid his phone onto the counter, camera open, pretending to check a message while capturing the ledger. On screen, dates stacked like bricks. Receipts stamped, initials scribbled, a pattern waiting to be traced. But here was the bind. Instincts roared, evidence whispered. One wrong move, and the child vanished into night. One rash word, and the man claimed harassment. So Graham did what years of building hospitals had taught him. He defined the mission in a single sentence. Protect the child, lawfully, here, now. He exhaled once, slow. The first line of battle wasn't fists or threats. It was information, notes, timestamps, patterns. That was how you fight predators without losing the case before it begins. In his head, he drew a floor plan. Lobby, cameras, exits, side doors. The motel wasn't just drywall and locks anymore. It was a map of risk. Every corridor, every clock, another piece of the puzzle he would build into proof. Tonight, he wouldn't gamble on instinct alone. He would gather, log, preserve, brick by brick, until the case was unshakable. At the clerk's desk, a dot matrix printer coughed out paper. Graham scanned the pages, each receipt like a breadcrumb in a dark forest. There it was. 3 nights, 3 charges, all time-stamped 1:57 a.m. Not midnight, not 2. Always the same minute, to the second. Patterns don't lie. People do. He flipped the page, fingers steady while his mind raced. Same card number, same room, same peculiar purchase. Infant supplies, formula, diapers. Bought in the middle of the night, with no infant in sight. The clerk leaned closer. Creepy, right? Always exact, like he's punching in at work. Graham nodded once, hiding the chill under his skin. This wasn't random. This was ritual. And rituals mean systems. He snapped photos, each frame capturing the timestamp in stark black ink. His mind replayed the girl's mirror signal. One flash, once was enough. Now the receipts echoed her plea. Routine as a prison bell. The weight of the discovery pressed into his chest, not as shock, but as grim confirmation. Predators thrive in patterns, and when you expose the pattern, you expose the crime. Coincidence had officially turned into system. Graham tucked the receipts into a manila envelope, sealing the first link in the chain. Not just instinct anymore, evidence. Traceable, recordable, provable. The girl's SOS was no longer silent. It was ink on paper, a rhythm in black and white. The lobby monitor flickered with grainy footage, timestamp glowing red. 2:02 a.m. Graham leaned in, eyes narrowing. On screen, the man, Kellen Price, the clerk confirmed, walked stiffly beside the girl, his hand clamped on the nape of her neck. She flinched, barely a twitch, but unmistakable. The footage froze. Graham studied the frame, fingers pressing skin, a child recoiling. Coercion captured in pixels. Anger throbbed, but he forced it into silence. Emotion couldn't taint the record. Evidence had to breathe clean, unshaken by rage. He tapped the timestamp on the screen, asked the clerk to log it, then snapped his own copy with a body cam he kept in his jacket. Still, frustration gnawed at him. He could see coercion clear as daylight, but without identity clarity, the law called it insufficient. His jaw clenched. This was the battle between truth you feel and truth you can prove, so he logged it. Wrote the frame number, cataloged the time. Every detail mattered because predators thrive in shadows, and shadows shrink when you record the light. The girl's signal had found its second echo. Receipts gave rhythm, and now the footage gave form. Graham straightened, pulse steady again. He wasn't storming the hallway, not yet. He was building the case brick by brick, quiet as a mason at midnight. The fight had just begun. The footage burned in his mind, but Graham knew better than to rush. He dialed the local non-emergency line. Voice clipped, deliberate. Possible child in danger. Room 214. Patterned receipts. Footage of coercion. The dispatcher's voice came flat, mechanical. "Sir, do you have confirmed identity of victim or imminent physical harm?" His grip tightened on the phone. The child signaled distress. "I have timestamps, surveillance footage. Without ID, without verified harm. We cannot dispatch units at this time." The words landed like cold stone. Not enough. Not enough. Graham's jaw ached as he forced his tone calm. "Log my report. Mark the time." The line clicked dead. He stood silent in the lobby, fury pounding in his temples. He had given them pattern timestamps, visible coercion, still not enough. The law was built to prevent false alarms, but tonight it shielded the wrong side. And Graham felt the weight of every second ticking. He exhaled once, let the anger flow out. Emotion was fuel, but procedure was the engine. If the front gate was locked, he'd climb the ladder. If the local desk said insufficient, he'd find someone higher who understood the stakes. The refusal didn't break him, it sharpened him, because every no only meant the case had to be built stronger, wider, cleaner. The fight wasn't lost, it was just escalated. Graham scrolled through his contacts until one name appeared, Maya Reddick, State Child Safety Liaison, precise, unshakable, and one of the few people he trusted with his foundation's darker calls. He hit dial. The line hummed once, then her voice. "Whitfield, midnight's a strange hour. Child in danger, motel, receipts show ritual, footage shows coercion. Local won't move. No pause, no disbelief, only clipped efficiency. Send me the file. Case initialized." On his phone, a new header blinked across his secure app. Case, Funder 107 opened. Relief prickled through his chest. Not joy, not triumph, just the solid weight of backup. He was no longer one man pushing against silence. He was part of a system. Maya's tone was firm. "Hold position. Do not engage. Secure environment. Gather evidence. We're 30 out. 30 minutes. To predators, an eternity. To Graham, a countdown." He walked the lobby, mapping the exits again. He wasn't alone now, but the responsibility was heavier. Backup was on the way. But the child was still in reach of danger. He steadied his breath. The mirror flash had opened the door. The receipts and footage had built the wall. And now, with case number 1207 logged, he finally had allies pressing in. No longer an instinct. Now, it was a mission. June sat near the vending machine, shoulders small beneath the fluorescent glare. Kellen loomed beside her, restless, checking his watch. Graham motioned toward the counter. "Hey, Eli, could you reprint that key envelope?" Ink smeared. His voice carried just enough to stall. The clerk caught his cue, fumbled the printer, muttering, "Machine's stubborn tonight." Kellen shifted. Impatient. June's eyes flicked once toward Graham, quick as a sparrow, then down again. He leaned against the counter, casual. "Long drive." Kellen's smile was paper thin. "Yeah, she's tired. Just want to get her settled." His hand never left her arm. Every fiber in Graham screamed to intervene, but he forced himself calm. Seconds were currency, and he was buying them. Behind him, Eli hit the print button again, letting it whir. Delay, stall, cover. The child stayed in sight. The suspect stayed rooted. June shifted, brushing the mirror in her pocket like a secret talisman. Graham caught the flicker, but didn't react. He couldn't risk exposing her signal. Instead, he leaned back, blocking the hallway just enough with his stance. A polite smile, an accidental obstacle. In that bubble of stalled motion, the child was safer than she'd been all night. Not rescued yet, but not vanishing either. The trick wasn't confrontation, it was presence. Quiet, steady, immovable. And in those drawn-out seconds, Graham's role crystallized. Not the savior charging in, but the wall standing firm until the cavalry arrived. As the printer spat its final copy, Graham's eyes caught a detail most would ignore. At the bottom of the receipt, beneath the merchant code, tiny digits curved like a whisper. Hotline routing number. He snapped a photo and sent it to Maya. Within seconds, her reply pinged back. Verified. This motel runs through Carousel hubs. The name froze him. Carousel. Not random crime. A system. A network moving children like cargo on a timetable. His throat tightened, but he kept his face smooth, neutral to anyone watching. He handed Kellen the fresh envelope, polite as a clerk. Sorry for the delay. Kellen grunted, tugging June closer, but the man didn't know what Graham now held. A connection far bigger than one room. Carousel meant infrastructure, records, coordination. And that meant a chain that could be broken link by link if logged the right way. Graham whispered to Eli, "Mark that copy, witnessed by both of us." The clerk nodded, shaky but determined. The receipts weren't just proof anymore, they were maps, showing how a child's midnight purchases could trace a whole machine. And with every photo, every log, the mirror's single flash grew into a case file too heavy to ignore. For the first time, Graham allowed himself the smallest flicker of hope, not triumph, not relief, but the knowledge that the girl's signal was no longer fading alone in the dark. It was written, recorded, preserved, and now it was spreading into hands that could act. The system had a name, and that meant the fight had a target. The printer finally cooled, leaving a stack of receipts like silent witnesses. Graham laid them flat on the counter. "Eli, sign here. Witness that you printed and observed these." The clerk's hands trembled, but he pressed pen to paper. A signature might look small, but in court it was a fortress. Next, Graham pulled out his evidence board, no bigger than a clipboard, with a clock synchronized to the second. He photographed each receipt beside the timepiece, then sealed duplicates in envelopes. 2 copies, one for immediate custody, one for backup. "Why 2? Eli asked, voice low. "Because predators break chains. We make them unbreakable." The words landed heavy. Graham could feel the boy's fear, but also his resolve. The clerk wasn't just a bystander anymore, he was part of the record. A ping from Maya buzzed his phone. "Owen Pike online," she typed. "Remote evidence tech, ready to walk through every procedure." Graham breathed easier. He wasn't fumbling in shadows. He was building on rails designed to hold. He logged each photograph, sealed the envelope, and pressed the evidence sticker across the flap. Every detail mattered. Who touched what, at what time, in whose presence. The mirror flash had started it. The receipts gave rhythm. Now the paperwork gave spine. Graham slid the signed packet across the counter, eyes meeting Eli's. "You've done more than you know." The boy nodded, a flicker of pride beneath the fear. Evidence was no longer abstract. It had weight, signatures, and a path that led straight toward justice. The lobby clock ticked toward midnight when Kellen's phone buzzed. His eyes narrowed, scanning the screen. Then he tugged June's arm with sudden force. "Come on!" Graham stiffened. Something had shifted. Not routine, panic. The man's grip was tighter now, urgent. June stumbled, barely catching her balance as he steered her toward the exit. Inside Graham, alarm bells rang. The extraction time had moved up. Whoever controlled Kellen was accelerating the timetable. He slid a cart casually across the narrow lobby aisle. "Oops, sorry, need to get this out of the way." His tone stayed breezy, masking the pulse hammering in his chest. Kellen scowled, tugging the girl closer. "We're in a hurry." Graham smiled thinly. "Aren't we all?" He bent, slowly repositioning the cart. Just enough to stall, just enough to buy seconds. June's wide eyes darted again, fear laced with a plea. Graham felt every second stretch like wire. The team was still minutes away. If Kellen got her into that car, the trail would scatter. But Graham couldn't grab her, couldn't accuse, couldn't let instinct wreck the record. He had to stall without sparking, so he lingered, turning the cart sideways, blocking the path as politely as a stranger rearranging furniture. Seconds. That was all he needed. Seconds until backup arrived. His voice stayed calm, but inside he was counting down heartbeats, praying the cavalry would burst through the doors before Kellen pulled her into the night. The glass doors slid open with a soft chime. To anyone watching, it looked like late-night guests checking in, but Graham recognized the posture instantly. Plain clothes, moving with quiet precision. 2 agents approached the desk, setting down a duffel bag labeled maintenance. Another slipped behind a velvet rope near the lounge, casual as a tourist. Subtle, deliberate, no sirens, no chaos. Just calm control seeping into the room. Eli blinked at Graham, realization dawning. Graham gave a small nod. "Help is here!" Kellen's eyes flicked suspicious, but nothing screamed police. To him, they were guests, travelers, staff. The illusion held. For now. An agent brushed past Graham, whispering just one word. Perimeter. And then the air shifted. The lobby wasn't a fragile waiting room anymore. It was a net, threads tightening around one man and one terrified child. Graham felt a rush of relief, tempered by restraint. This was the moment predators usually smelled the trap. One wrong twitch, and panic would detonate. So he smiled, leaned back against the counter, and let the professionals blend in. Across the room, June sat frozen, eyes on the floor. She didn't know yet, but the walls were closing in, not to cage her, but to keep her safe. The cavalry had arrived, silent as shadows. And now, the fight shifted from survival to strategy. In a side office, maps and receipts spread across a corkboard under fluorescent hum. Priya Talwar, tech lead, traced lines with a marker. Graham stood beside her, watching patterns emerge like a spider's web. "Look here," she said. "Every charge is synchronized. Same item, same timestamp. It's not custody, it's throughput." Her words landed like a strike. Not a man holding a child, a system moving children, a pipeline. Harper Quinn, the ethics officer, crossed her arms, voice tight. "This isn't just one victim, it's scheduled intake." Graham's chest tightened. He'd suspected, but hearing it framed in system terms turned anger into steel. On the board, arrows fanned outward, receipts to CCTV logs, CCTV to room numbers, a lattice of movement, cold and mechanical. "This isn't chance," Priya said. "This is design." The phrase echoed in his mind. Design. Someone had mapped this, engineered it, timed it down to the second. Graham stared at the hub at the center of the map. Carousel. What began as a mirror flash from one frightened child was now revealed as a machine, a system feeding off silence, grinding on schedule. His throat went dry, but resolve cut sharper. "Then we break the system." The room fell quiet. No speeches, no drama, just professionals staring at a board that turned suspicion into war. Graham knew then. Tonight wasn't just about one rescue, it was about striking a blow at the machine itself. The room smelled faintly of dust and fear as agents carefully opened June's small backpack. Inside, beneath a folded sweatshirt, lay a slip of lilac paper. Graham leaned closer, heart pounding. Handwritten in slanted ink were the words, Riverton. Just 2:14, 2's 2:15. The silence in the room thickened. Priya snapped a photo, time-stamped it, sealed the note in a pouch. Harper whispered, "That's a schedule, not a note, a manifest." Graham's stomach clenched. Not a random scrap, a ticket, a marker for pickup. He stared at the number, 214. The same room stamped on the receipts. The same digits that tied every breadcrumb together. June sat on the chair nearby, eyes down, unaware that her small backpack had just cracked the case wide open. For Graham, the discovery wasn't triumph. It was terror sharpened into clarity. The girl wasn't a victim of chance. She was inventory. He steadied his breath, letting the dread harden into determination. This wasn't just about stalling anymore. This was about intercepting a timetable before another child disappeared into Carousel's machine. The slip of lilac paper, so small it could be mistaken for a grocery list, had become the coordinates for war. Graham looked at the team, voice steady. "Room 214 isn't just a door, it's a handoff point. We move before Tuesday, or the system swallows her whole." Screens flickered in the makeshift command post. Theo Armitage, analysis lead, scrolled through intercepted messages pulled from seized devices. On the screen, blurred chat logs, phrases repeated, "Keep intake on time." Carousel cycle cleared. Carmen Valdez, the legal counsel, leaned over his shoulder, eyes narrowing. That's program code. Carousel isn't a motel ring. It's an organized intake program. The word hung in the air like poison. Program, not chaos, not improvisation. An engineered system with schedules, handlers, and oversight. Harper's jaw tightened. They're treating children like shipments. Efficiency metrics. Scheduled throughput. Theo zoomed in on a highlighted phrase. Carousel. A digital hub pulsing across the network like the heart of a beast. Graham's chest burned, but his voice stayed level. They've named it. That means they've scaled it. And if they scaled it, they left trails. For a moment, the team just stared at the glowing word on the screen, its sharp edges a brand of cruelty masked as logistics. Priya broke the silence. Midpoint confirmed. This isn't about one room. It's about dismantling the machine. Graham nodded once, the decision heavy but unshakable. Tonight's rescue was no longer just urgent. It was pivotal. Every piece of evidence carried weight beyond this motel. The mirror flash that started as one girl's cry had now illuminated a network called Carousel. And naming the enemy meant one thing: they could be hunted. In the narrow service hallway, tension gathered like static. Commander Brooks Ellery unrolled a laminated chart across a folding table, colored zones marked red, yellow, green. "This is how we move," he said, voice clipped. "Soft cordon, silent breach, no deviation." Carmen read aloud the rules of engagement, clear as scripture. Minimal force, prioritize child safety, preserve evidence, document every step. Graham signed his name under Go, No Go. The pen's click echoed louder than any gunshot. Dr. Lila Shen, pediatric specialist, checked her medkit twice. Priya ran diagnostics on recording gear, red icon blinking on every lens, each roll locked in like gears in a watch. The room buzzed with hushed preparation, not a mob, not chaos, a system designed to shield life while preserving truth. Graham inhaled, steadying himself. He wasn't just a philanthropist tonight. He was part of a disciplined unit, bound by law, ethics, and care. Ellery's voice cut the tension. "On my call, green means go. No heroics, no improvisation. We win by the book." Everyone nodded. No one argued. The rules weren't shackles. They were armor. The last time Graham had felt this weight was in an operating theater, watching surgeons move with precision. One mistake cost a life. One breach of protocol cost the whole case. Tonight, the stakes were no different. The hallway reeked of cleaner and metal as the team stacked by the door of room 214. Graham stood back, heart hammering, yet eyes steady. A keycard slid. The lock clicked green. The hinge squeaked. Inside, silence pressed heavy. No shouting, no chaos. Just controlled movement as agents flowed in, splitting left and right, securing corners. "Clear," one whispered. Another agent eased June away from Kellen's grip, shielding her behind a protective stance. She clutched her mirror, eyes wide as though afraid it might shatter. Graham stayed just outside the doorway, his body angled to block any stray glance from the hall. His role wasn't brute force, it was shield. The room itself was barren, walls thin, furniture sparse. But on the nightstand sat a ledger, a phone, a stack of receipts, objects waiting to be logged. The air buzzed with restraint. No raised voices, no slammed fists. The entry wasn't about domination, it was about containment. Kellen froze, cornered but not struck. Every move was documented, every command calm and precise. Graham's chest swelled, not with triumph, but with respect. Rescues weren't cinematic explosions. The real victories were quiet, methodical, almost surgical. The girl wasn't free yet, but for the first time she was surrounded by people who saw her not as cargo, but as a child. And in the silence of that motel room, Graham knew the mirror's message had been answered, not with chaos, but with care. Inside room 214, the silence was broken only by the click of cameras. Owen Pike's voice came steady over the comms. Photograph, log, seal. On the nightstand lay the ledger, its columns filled with numbers and initials. Next to it, a stack of room keycards. Graham lifted one with gloved fingers, the number etched on it. 214, the same digits June carried in her bag. He held it steady, while an agent snapped the photo against a time board. Another officer signed the log sheet, initials crisp under the timestamp. Phones buzzed in Faraday pouches, their signals cut off. Receipts were stacked, photographed, sealed with evidence stickers. Each item was tagged, not just collected, witnessed. Graham felt the urge to curse, to rage at the cold neatness of it all, but he swallowed it. Outrage didn't build cases. Documentation did. Every sealed bag, every signed line was a nail in Carousel's coffin. The girl sat in the corner, knees drawn up, clutching her mirror as if it were the only stable thing left. She watched quietly as strangers cataloged the world that had trapped her. Graham glanced at her once, meeting her eyes with a silent vow. This isn't just paperwork. This is your freedom on record. The chain was forming, link by link, a record too clean to be broken. The ledger, the keycard, the phones, they weren't just objects. They were truth, captured and preserved. And once truth is preserved, justice has no excuse to look away. The steady rhythm shattered in an instant. Kellen lunged, breaking free from the agent's hold, sprinting toward the service elevator at the far end of the hall. Adrenaline surged. Graham's instincts screamed to chase, but training held him in place. Protect the child. Protect the record. The elevator doors yawned open. Kellen dove inside, jabbing the button panel with frantic hands. Graham's eyes snapped to the red switch on the wall. E-stop. He slammed his palm against it. A violent clang reverberated as the elevator froze mid-frame, lights flickering. The cab jolted, cables whining. Kellen slammed his fists against the steel, trapped between floors, nowhere to run. An agent slid into position, weapon low, voice calm. "Don't move." Graham exhaled, pulse still hammering. He hadn't chased. He hadn't left June unguarded. He'd chosen the harder path, the one that kept the child and the evidence safe. He glanced back. June's eyes were wide, but for the first time, her terror wasn't loneliness. It was relief. Kellen's capture would be clean, documented, contained. But more importantly, the child wasn't a footnote in a manhunt. She was the center, the predator was caged, and the case stayed intact. With Kellen restrained, Graham finally crouched before June. His voice softened, a quiet contrast to the chaos outside. "You signaled with the mirror. I saw you." Her fingers tightened around the small piece of glass, trembling. Dr. Lila Shen knelt beside him, gentle hands offering a foil blanket. "You're safe. No one can touch you now." June's breathing slowed, just enough for her eyes to meet theirs. Monroe Hale, the child advocate, entered the room, kneeling low, speaking softly. "You don't have to do anything you don't want. Do you want water or a blanket first?" June hesitated, then whispered, "Blanket." The choice was small, but it was hers. As they draped it over her shoulders, Graham noticed a faint glow at her wrist. A band, plastic, almost like a fitness tracker. It pulsed with a low light. He leaned closer, careful not to alarm her. "May I see that?" She nodded. The light blinked in steady rhythm, a pinging beacon. His stomach clenched. The band wasn't decoration, it was surveillance. But instead of panic, he steadied his tone. "Thank you for showing us. That's very brave." He logged the detail, photographing the band without removing it. Every move needed consent, every step transparent. The girl had given them her trust, one breath at a time. And Graham knew, rescuing her wasn't just about removing danger, it was about restoring dignity. The command post buzzed with motion, maps lit up with colored routes. Commander Ellery's voice rang clear. 3 vehicles, 1 clean transport for the child, 1 van for evidence, 1 decoy car to pull tails. Priya slipped the seized phones into Faraday sleeves, coding in false auto-replies. "We'll feed Carousel harmless noise. Make them think intake stayed on schedule." Dr. Lila escorted June toward a discreet side exit, Monroe at her side. The foil blanket rustled softly, her mirror tucked safely into her pocket. Graham walked with them until the car door shut, then stepped back, watching brake lights flare. For the first time that night, he allowed himself to breathe. The convoy split at the intersection, child heading one way, evidence another, decoy van a third. Each route meant confusion for anyone watching. Graham's phone buzzed. Status updates rolled in. Evidence couriered, child secured, decoy engaged. The system was trying to hold its grip, but tonight, its cycle had been broken. Still, Graham knew better than to relax. Carousel wouldn't stop. They'd tested the system, push for retrieval, maybe even bargain, but the girl was no longer a line item on a ledger. She was a person, shielded, her story preserved in files, timestamps, signatures, and Graham would stand ready, because predators weren't the only ones who could build systems. Protectors could, too. The safe house lights glowed dim when Graham's phone buzzed again. Unknown number, he answered, voice low. A man's tone slithered through the line. We know you've got her. You want her safe? Return the ledger and that wristband. Trade, or she disappears in the system forever. The demand was a knife to the chest. Ledger and band, their strongest evidence. Without them, the case collapsed. With them, Carousel's lawyers could bury truth in shadow. Priya leaned over the console, whispering, "It's a setup. They'll keep her regardless." Commander Ellery's jaw tightened. No trades, non-negotiable. The man pressed again, voice dripping menace. You think she's safe? We geofence the band. Step too far, and the beacon kills the case. Graham's fist clenched around the phone, but his voice stayed steady. You will not barter a child's life. Not with me. Not with anyone. The line went silent, then cut. Tension crackled in the room. Graham exhaled, forcing calm. He'd faced billion-dollar negotiations, but none with stakes this raw. This wasn't about money or contracts. This was about whether dignity was negotiable. His decision was final. The child's humanity was not for trade. The evidence would hold. And so would she. Priya hunched over her laptop, eyes scanning the wristband signal. Heartbeat cadence. That's their trigger. If the band stops pulsing, Carousel thinks she's gone. Her fingers flew across keys, coding a shadow signal, a cloned heartbeat, steady and false. Graham knelt beside June. May we help you take it off? You're in control. She nodded, small but sure. With gentle hands, Dr. Lila slipped the band loose. The LED flickered. Everyone froze. Then Priya's program caught it, duplicating the pulse, feeding the system a ghost signal. The LED died. The clone held steady. Relief swept the room like wind through open windows. Monroe placed a hand on June's shoulder. No one can track you now. You're free. Graham's eyes burned, but he kept his voice even. You did that, June. You chose. That makes all the difference. For the first time, June's lips curved upward, tentative but real. The predator's leash had snapped. Not through brute force, but through skill, care, and the child's own consent. Carousel had lost its hold before they even knew it. The sting unfolded in silence. Overwatch units closed in on a parking lot across town where Turner, the voice on the phone, waited with two accomplices. Plainclothes agents approached casually, then in a flash, cuffs clicked, devices dropped into Faraday bags, labeled and sealed. No sirens, no shouts, just procedure, clean and quiet. On the comms, a voice rang out, "Safe, green." Graham exhaled, shoulders finally loosening, not because danger had vanished, but because justice was intact. He watched as officers signed custody logs, every item cataloged. Evidence wasn't victory until it was preserved. Tonight, it was airtight. Turner cursed as they hauled him away, but his words meant nothing. Every receipt, every timestamp, every signal was stronger than threats. June sat in a safe car nearby, Monroe holding her hand, Dr. Lila by her side. For her, this wasn't a courtroom or a sting operation. It was simply the moment the nightmare cracked. The predator was caged. The case was sealed, and the story would belong to truth, not silence. Morning light broke over the safe house. June slept under a foil blanket, soft breath steady, the mirror tucked beneath her pillow like a shield. Evidence packets moved up the chain, ledger to the DA, phones to forensics, warrants ready to spread through Carousel's network. But Graham's mind was already beyond tonight. One rescue wasn't enough. The system needed change. He funded a new initiative, One Record Safe System. Evidence would be logged once securely, with consent, overseen by social workers. No duplication, no gaps predators could exploit. Monroe addressed the press later that week. When a child signals for help, the community must know what to do. Record once, preserve dignity, respond lawfully. The message spread, stronger than threats, louder than silence. Graham stood at the back, hands folded, listening. This wasn't his story anymore. It was June's. It was every child's who might one day lift a mirror toward the light. As he left the hall, he whispered the vow that had carried him since the first flash. A child's dignity comes first, always. The screen faded, leaving only a hotline number. A checklist. Record once. Keep receipts. Secure consent. The fight wasn't finished, but the system had been noticed. And once noticed, it could never go unseen again.